A lot of things have been going on in my life recently, and they're not necessarily good things. Essentially, this is a video in which I discuss, or rather rant about, various things that I need to get off my chest. There will be a lot of brutal honesty and swearing throughout the video, not to mention subject matters that aren't all puppies, rainbows and lollipops. And in the words of Robbie Rotten from Lazytown, don't let your kids watch it. As an aside, the We Are Number One meme was, and still is, fucking golden. Rest in peace, Stefan. Something happened recently that really shook me, and not in a good way, nor was it all night long. The incident took place on the afternoon of Sunday, August 4, after I had been to the Bush Tramway Club's Heritage Railway west of Huntly. We were going east along London Street in central Hamilton, and had the green light through the intersection with Anglesey Street. All of a sudden, an absent-minded "see you next Tuesday" comes screaming along Anglesey, blazes right through the red light and very nearly hits our car. Mum had to slam on the brakes with absolutely no warning, and everything happened so quickly that it scared me half to death. I swear to God, some of these drivers are absolute fucking morons, to put it as mildly as I can without saying the supposedly forbidden R word. I have absolutely no patience for stupid drivers, especially when they seemingly ignore a fucking red light. How the hell do some of these people retain their licenses, let alone get them in the first place? I would be lying if I said that things have been smooth sailing lately, especially where my mental state is concerned. The near-death experience at Anglesey and London only made it worse, and it was already pretty bad to begin with. The good thing is that there are a few places I can think of where, given the chance, I would go and spend several hours sitting around and relaxing while trying to forget about the insanity of this crazy-ass world. Those places include, but are not limited to, Auckland's Wynyard Quarter tram line, the Ferrymead Railway and tram line in Christchurch, Paikakariki Railway Station on the Kapiti Coast near Wellington, and lastly, Coronation Park in Mount Maunganui. But in some ways, the world still feels so goddamn insane and horrific that it could rival what the Aberdeen, Carolina and Western did to that one AC6000 CW. Quite frankly, I was enraged when I found out about that experiment. Who the hell thought that unholy abomination of a rebuild was a good idea? Take the damn thing to a scrapyard and put her out of her misery! And now for another controversial opinion. I hate the way CSX designed their heritage units. Sure, the concept is distinctive, in a sense, but the locomotives just look repulsive with the cabs still painted in CSX colours. Chassis System 1973, as opposed to James Blunt's 1973, is the absolute worst of the bunch, in my opinion, and Atlantic Coastline 1871 is the only one I can sort of tolerate. Norfolk Southern did their heritage units the right way, in the sense that they actually did full liveries, and 8102 is goated. As for the Heritage SD70 ACE range on Union Pacific, while their liveries are not even close to authentic for their respective railroads, at least UP didn't paint the cabs in the normal armour yellow. Besides the very existence of Aberdeen, Carolina and Western No. 87 and Great Northern F45 No. 441, one of the reasons why I'm so angry at the world is because of what happened to me in high school, but I will not say which one I went to. I hated the education system for seemingly not giving a two-shit flying fuck about students' individual needs/learning habits. They instead insisted on treating every student in more or less the same way, as if this was a production line for frozen pancakes. There's a reason why I still, semi-jokingly, refer to NCEA as nationwide controlling by evil authorities. There was too much pressure from the system to get too much overly complicated work done in too short a time frame, or for those bloody daunting exams at the end of the year. And I have no idea how my friends managed it all. Although it's been 7 years since I quit that horrible school, I still have painful memories that are difficult to shake off, and yet sometimes I still look out the window at the fucking school when I go past on the Bayhopper bus. But to quote a Steely Dan song, I'm never going back to my old school. As an aside, I often use the great big yellow things to get around the city, and I'm a bit partial to the battery electric Enviro 200s, of which there are only 5 in this fleet, amongst all the diesels. But there are so many problems with the network that it's not funny, such as certain routes still running only every 30 minutes instead of 20 on weekdays, the utterly embarrassing bus interchange in the city centre, Christchurch says hold my beer, then badly scheduled connection times at said interchange, especially on weekends, and a ridiculous detour that routes 60, 70 and 72 have to take to get out of the CBD, which results in them always running late. Who seriously thought making the Wharf Street to Spring Street section of Willow Street one way was a good idea? You bloody lunatics! By some miracle, I still have a small selection of friends left over from my otherwise hellish years in high school, but so many of them have either moved away to different cities, or, in a few cases, Australia, that it's getting to the point where I'll just about have to cut most of those connections, and I'm extremely hesitant to do so. There was one person who moved to Auckland in early 2021, and I got so pissed off with all the times when she was too damn busy to catch up, which was pretty much every single fucking time that I went to Auckland between February 2021 and October 2023, that I just gave up, quietly ended that friendship, and attempted to move on, despite those 2 years of being stubbornly determined to have things work out at least once. In other words, I essentially just realised that this person wasn't worth my time anymore. It may not surprise anyone to know that, as a socially awkward loser, or as Little River Band would say, a lonesome loser, I'm afraid to go out and attempt to make new friends, especially after the disastrous visits to a local youth group back in 2021. I'm extremely hesitant to talk to people outside of my small circle of friends, and can't bear the thought of losing even more of them, despite these people often being too busy to catch up. I've kept the old friends anonymous for the sake of their privacy. I'm well aware of the fact that I'm essentially boxing myself into a corner by being hesitant to try new things and meet new people. Not even I understand how my mind works sometimes. Sometimes, I do still try to arrange a phone call with a friend, But more times than I care to remember, I've been told by the other person that they have something else going on, which results in them being unavailable and me feeling unwanted. That is, of course, if they actually reply. Some people take ages to reply and others don't bother at all. And compared to them, my life is nowhere near as busy, especially since I don't go to university. To be clear, I really do appreciate the occasions when these old friends from school are available to chat or meet in person, as criminally rare as they are. But I prefer a more rigidly planned schedule and have a strong fear of rejection. That thing about rejection didn't come out of thin air, mind. Possibly the one person I hate more than anyone else in the entire world is myself. I mean, look at me. Not that you'd want to. I still don't have a conventional job, driver's license, or significant other at 23 years old. All of my old friends from school seem to have partners of their own, to the point where they make it look as easy as driving the Deutsche Bahn BR422 electric multiple unit in Train Sim World 4. By contrast, I have never had a partner, and I'm baffled by how it seems to have worked for everyone else but me, considering the fact they were all in Generation Z. Or, in the case of this tram, Generation Z3. Just my luck, and I've never met a woman around my age who's just as passionate about the railways as I am, let alone a rail fan of any level. Not a single one of my old school friends are rail fans. Go figure. But they still respect my hobby, so I'll give them credit for that. I did try finding a partner at least 5 times in the high school era, but nearly every single bloody time, either I was too nervous to ask her out, or it turned out that the girl either didn't like me back or was already taken. To the point where I now wonder if that was the universe deliberately screwing with me for no reason. Like what Squidward had to deal with in Cephalopod Lodge and other post-Season 5 SpongeBob episodes. I have always refused to try online dating apps because I don't want to risk being catfished, and I've never liked the concept of dating apps anyway. In any case, my situation isn't helped by my complete lack of knowledge on how to flirt, and I didn't say that just for the sake of a visual pun. This train is a Stadler flirt, in case you didn't know. My friends have said that they believe I'll find someone eventually, but I doubt the credibility of that statement because they've been saying that for years, and yet I'm still unsuccessful in this field. They had been relying on the idea of chance encounters in person, but that never worked, and I dare say it was due to not knowing where to go to find a potential partner. Either that, or unrealistic expectations on my part. As for the kind of partner I'd like, what matters most to me is the personality, and how well I can get along with her. In any case, I found out the hard way that looks can be deceiving. Just my luck, and the person who did that abhorrent manipulation in 2015 and 2016 has the same initials as all the vintage New Zealand rail cars. A bad coincidence if ever there was one. Something that really puts me off from trying again in the 2020s is the aforementioned fear of rejection. Or, if it ever worked out, I'm deathly afraid of the possibility of the woman being a traitorous bitch and cheating on me. I understand the importance of commitment, and hate the ideas of hookup culture, one-night stands, or whatever other immoral things Gen Z is practicing these days. As for why I've gone so deep into this issue in a fucking YouTube video, of all things, it's because I simply don't know anywhere else to discuss it, since I don't care for Reddit anymore, and I avoid TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram like the plague. As for the rail fanning scene, I have been getting increasingly angry at, / stressed over, KiwiRail's unpredictable nature in recent times. Not to mention seeing the railways gradually getting worse and worse in terms of declining traffic outside of the Golden Triangle. And no, I do not immediately jump to blaming the current government, unlike some people. I might just continue to film the trains around my local area, because at least that's a little bit less stressful, with occasional trips to heritage railways or to see a mainline excursion. I dare say I'll still film KiwiRail services out of town when there are rare workings or when I'm on holiday. In my mind, the railway world is one of the few places that still offers some decent escapism from the horrors of life, but even then, it still has several bad aspects that really sour the whole thing. Because of course it fucking does! Despite all the times when I've tried to express my outrage at various things, like when I wrote my first original Thomas story, The Shocking Revelation, it hardly ever seems to work. Indeed, something happened back in April 2024 that saw my angrier/more pessimistic side come roaring back, but I will not recount what happened for the sake of my sanity. Even though I've gotten a lot off my chest in this video, I honestly don't feel too much better, which probably says a lot. In any case, I still have no idea where to turn for the future. There will now be another short intermission before I move on to the next segment. And now for a shout out to Brett Cooper, who seems to be one of the few beacons of sanity and common sense in this day and age, but some of her videos are about pretty aggravating subjects, to the point where I wonder why I bothered clicking on the video in the first place. I can't relate to a lot of her topics due to not being American myself, but in any case, she has been a big influence on me when it comes to being brutally honest and not backing down from my beliefs. Thinking back to my rant about the dating situation, I also want to shout out Brett's recent video called This Class Will Teach You Why You're Single. A lot of what's discussed in that video is very close to my situation, apart from the fact that I don't go to university. Brett, if, by some miracle, you're watching this video, you're always welcome to visit New Zealand as far as I'm concerned. If you do come here, I recommend going to the Driving Creek Railway on the Coromandel Peninsula, the Gisborne City Vintage Railway, whose line goes across an airport runway, or trying out the beaches and restaurants here in Tauranga. One of the smaller beaches, namely at Maxwell's Road, is right next to a railway bridge, and come to think of it, you'd probably see a lot more trains there than you would on the Wego Star line from Nashville to Lebanon. Side note, the Wego Star name sucks. It should have stayed as the Music City Star, and don't get me started on the F40PH locomotives in that ugly purple livery. The MBTA up in Boston did purple F40s much better, just saying. Frankly, I sometimes feel completely lost in this insane world. This is despite the fact that I'm fortunate enough to have a roof over my head, as well as being able to afford decent food and semi-frequent travel to other parts of the country. Not to mention living with Maggie the cat, Bessie the dog, and parents who, surprisingly, don't hate me. Sure, there's also escapism like the UK dub of the first 5 seasons of Thomas the Tank Engine, writing my own Thomas stories, or listening to music. Not to mention going out to watch the buses, or even just sitting outside on the deck while guzzling down comically too much orange juice. Briefly thinking back to Maggie the cat, the sound of her purring is very soothing, for whatever reason. But even with all of those options, and many more besides, I'm just so goddamn overwhelmed with everything that's going on that I've sometimes felt like I want to be rid of it all. And thanks to something I very nearly did in July 2023, I now have a painful memory involving DL's 9688 and 9740. As an analogy for how I'm feeling most of the time, it's like if you're swimming at the beach, and suddenly a terrifyingly large wave comes bearing down on top of you. I feel like I've been dealing with that metaphorical huge wave for at least the last 8 years now. And yet I do not vape, drink alcohol, or smoke cigarettes. Never have done, and never will. On Friday, August 9, I went for an outing to Mount Maunganui in an effort to ease my mind, if ease is the right word. I initially caught the Route 5 bus service over to Totara Street, where I found DL's 9544 and 9417 parked by the turntable. 9544 is notable for her new handrails, which run all the way down the running board on both sides. Next, it was back on the number 5 to continue to Salisbury Avenue and Coronation Park. This is a very pleasant spot with a little waterfall, 2 ponds, and plenty of trees. Surprisingly, it still feels very quaint despite being surrounded by busy streets and shops. You can get here from the city centre by catching the aforementioned number 5 bus, and I find this to be a good place to sit and relax. There were lots of birds at the park, including 2 ducks going for a swim and numerous tui up in the trees. And if you don't know what a tui is, this is an iconic native New Zealand bird, distinguished by the white feathers on its neck, bluish-green feathers, and an unmistakable squawk. There's a little cafe next to the bus stop on Salisbury Avenue, and its name is Sponge Drop, not to be confused with SpongeBob. They specialise in little cakes and slices, and I got this chocolate cupcake while I was there. This was a bit of a luxury item, because it cost me $6. After the sponge drop visit, I continued around up to the hot pools and partway down Maunganui Road for a proper lunch. Then, by chance, got to ride on battery electric bus number 306 down to Bayfair. After that, I managed to film DL 9544 heading out to Kawero with train 373. I heard that Mattel has apparently cancelled the 2022 version of Thomas Wooden Railway. Luckily, Toy World at Bayfair still had some TWR packs in stock, but not a standalone engine, which is what I would have preferred. In any case, this figure 8 set was still quite expensive despite the 20% discount. It cost me $88, when I think a more reasonable price would have been around $25 or $30. I've been out of the loop on what's going on with Thomas merchandise recently, but on first impression, I think what Mattel has done to wooden Thomas toys is fucking baffling. They introduced the notorious Thomas Wood line in 2018, with this ridiculous barely painted look, followed by the fully painted version in 2019. Why they ever thought the mostly unpainted look was a good idea is anyone's guess. The new version of Thomas Wooden Railway, which replaced Thomas Wood, is now being killed off after only 2 years. What the hell is going on at Mattel? Regardless of the Thomas Wooden Railway conundrum, I still enjoyed this trip to Mount Maunganui, with highlights including the sunny weather, hearing the tui squawking in the trees at Coronation Park, seeing DL 9544 in action, picking up that new wooden Thomas set, then riding on the battery electric bus along Route 5. Getting outside and touching grass is a very important thing to do in this era of screen addiction, for want of a better term. Meanwhile, I think the number 5 might just be my favourite of Tauranga's bus routes. I will end this video with a list of some of my favourite songs of all time, followed by a quote from Brett Cooper. If what I've discussed in this video wasn't already enough, these songs should indicate why I like what I like in my current mental state, or just my music taste in general. The songs in question are as follows: The Ballad of Lucy Jordan from Marianne Faithfull, Video Killed the Radio Star from The Buggles, Cars from Gary Newman, Crazy Train from Ozzy Osbourne, Only Time Will Tell from Asia, Telegraph Road from Dire Straits, Going Home from Mark Knopfler, Land of Confusion from Genesis, the 1987 remix of Valerie from Steve Winwood, and On Every Street from Dire Straits. Dire Straits happens to be my favourite band. Only Time Will Tell is particularly relatable because, the way I see it, it's about a man either angrily or boldly calling out his partner's betrayal. I had that sort of thing happen to me, to an extent, but that's too personal of an issue to discuss any further on a public forum. Oh, and the song also has a badass grunty drum line. I will always prefer real drums over drum machines. In any case, if you're curious to listen to any of these songs for yourself, make sure that it's an extended album or 12-inch version, and don't listen to any shorter versions. I have a fierce hatred of radio edits. As for that quote of Brett's that I alluded to, I realised that it reminds me of my ongoing mental health struggles and how things need to change for the better, especially if I have any hope in hell of losing the dreaded single label, but that is going to be a lot easier said than done. In the video called Therapy, a Cure or a Crutch, she says this: "If you keep dragging on the same issue over and over, you will never move on or grow. It's like grief. At some point you have to move forward because life doesn't stop around you. It doesn't mean that you will never stop feeling the pain of losing somebody, but you have to keep going. And as you keep going, it gets easier. You just have to try."